Have you ever felt that quiet voice inside whispering, "You were meant for more than this"? Maybe it happens late at night when the world goes silent and your thoughts get loud. Maybe it hits you in the middle of a routine day when everything looks fine on the outside. But something deep inside knows you're not living your full truth. That voice isn't noise. It's the real you trying to wake up. It's the part of you that refuses to be buried under comfort, fear, and the expectations of others. It's the reminder that you weren't born to be average. Most people silence that voice. They tell themselves to be realistic, to settle, to stop dreaming so big. They trade their fire for safety, their vision for approval, their purpose for routine. And at first, it feels easier, but deep down, it starts to hurt. Because the soul knows when it's living small. The soul knows when it's hiding from the greatness it was built for. Every day you ignore that voice, a part of you dims. And one day, you wake up wondering where your energy went, where your passion went, where your courage went. But here's the truth. Average is not your destiny. It's a choice. It's a story you've been told, and one you can rewrite at any moment. Every extraordinary person you admire once stood exactly where you are. They faced the same doubts, the same fears, the same voices telling them to give up before they even began. The difference is, they listened to that whisper inside and said, "Not me. I wasn't born to blend in." They decided to believe in something most people never will, the power within their own hands to change everything. That power lives in you too. It's not waiting for perfect timing or permission. It's waiting for a decision, a single moment when you stop negotiating with your limitations and start claiming your potential. The world doesn't need another person who plays it safe. It needs someone who dares to rise, someone who decides that comfort is the enemy of growth, someone who finally says, "Enough. I will no longer be average." Because being average is not about ability. It's about acceptance. It's about accepting less than you're capable of, settling for what's familiar instead of what's possible. The moment you stop accepting that, everything changes. The fear doesn't disappear, but your reason to act becomes stronger than your reason to stay still. So stay with me, because this journey isn't about motivation that fades by morning. It's about awakening something deeper, something that reminds you who you are before the world told you who to be. You'll learn why you've been stuck, how to rise again, and what it truly means to live a life that reflects your full potential. By the end, you'll see that the gap between who you are and who you could be is not as wide as it feels. It's just one decision wide. And that decision starts right now, with you choosing to listen to that inner voice and say, "I wasn't born to be average." This is your reminder. This is your moment. And if you stay till the end, you'll never see yourself the same way again. The truth is, every human being feels the pull between who they are and who they could be. It's a quiet tension that never really goes away. You can bury it under distractions, drown it in excuses, or numb it with comfort, but it always comes back, because purpose doesn't disappear. It waits. It waits for the moment you get tired of pretending that average is enough. It waits for the moment you realize that good enough isn't good enough for a soul that craves greatness. Somewhere along the way, you were taught to believe that being different was dangerous, that standing out meant you'd be judged, that trying too hard meant you'd fail. So you learned to shrink, to play small, to smile while settling. But you can't lie to yourself forever. Deep inside, you know the cost of staying where you are is heavier than the risk of reaching higher. The pain of regret cuts deeper than the fear of failure ever will. Every time you choose fear over faith, you teach yourself that your dreams aren't worth fighting for. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you reinforce the idea that your potential doesn't matter. But it does. You do. And the moment you start treating your potential like something sacred, everything inside you starts to shift. You begin to see that the limits around you aren't made of walls. They're made of belief. They're made of stories you've been repeating to yourself for so long that you've mistaken them for truth. But the mind is powerful. It believes what you feed it. When you tell yourself you can't, your brain finds reasons to prove it. When you tell yourself you can, your brain searches for ways to make it real. That's not fantasy, that's science. Neuroplasticity shows us that your thoughts literally shape your brain, rewiring your reality one belief at a time. The question is, which story are you strengthening? The one that keeps you average or the one that sets you free? You weren't born with fear, you learned it. You learned it from voices that didn't believe in themselves. You absorbed their limits and made them your own. But you can unlearn it too. You can choose to stop repeating their story and start writing your own. Every time you take action despite fear, every time you push when it would be easier to quit, you rewire your identity. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and start becoming the architect of your life. And that's when something incredible happens. You start to remember who you are. You remember the child who dreamed without limits, the one who believed they could fly, build, create, become. That version of you is still here, buried under years of self-doubt and the weight of other people's expectations. It's time to dig that person out. Because average has no hold on the person you were born to be. You were built for purpose, not for permission. You were built to rise, not to repeat. So let this be your awakening. The moment you stop waiting for motivation and start building momentum, the moment you stop asking, can I, and start declaring, I will. Greatness doesn't start with a plan, it starts with a decision. A single, quiet decision that echoes through the rest of your life. I refuse to live as half of myself. I refuse to die with my potential still inside me. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to break through. The hardest part about transformation isn't the work itself. It's letting go of who you were before. The identity that feels safe, the habits that keep you comfortable, the patterns that protect you from failure. They're all walls built to keep you from pain. But those same walls also block you from power. You can't step into a new life while clinging to the one that keeps you small. You can't become the person you were born to be while staying loyal to the version of yourself that fears change. Growth always requires a death, the death of the old you. That death isn't dramatic, it's quiet. It's the small moments when you say no to the easy path. When you wake up early even though no one's watching. When you choose discipline over distraction, purpose over pleasure, faith over doubt. Every one of those moments chips away at the old identity that once held you back. That's how real change happens. Not in grand gestures, but in daily choices. Change doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for consistency. It asks for courage when it would be easier to give up. Psychologists call it identity shift. The process of becoming someone new by acting as if you already are. When you start showing up as the person you want to be, your mind catches up. Your self-image begins to evolve. You no longer see yourself as someone trying. You see yourself as someone becoming. That's when motivation turns into momentum, and momentum turns into mastery. You no longer need external validation because the proof is in your actions. You become your own evidence, but the world won't always clap for you when you start changing. Some people will question it. Some will try to pull you back, not because they don't believe in you, but because your growth reminds them of their own stagnation. Your light will expose what they've chosen to hide. Don't dim it to make them comfortable. The price of becoming extraordinary is often misunderstanding. But remember, every person who ever did something meaningful walked that same lonely road before the applause came. You can't chase approval and purpose at the same time. One will always require you to sacrifice the other. So when the doubt comes, and it will, return to your why. Remember what's at stake if you stay the same. Remember the life that's waiting on the other side of your fear. Nothing worth having is ever found in the comfort zone. The comfort zone is a thief that steals time, dreams, and purpose quietly until one day you wake up and realize you traded your potential for predictability. Don't let that be your story. Your story is one of awakening, of courage, of persistence. It's the story of someone who decided that enough was enough, that average would no longer define them, because the truth is, no one is born average. We become average by forgetting how powerful we are, by believing the world when it tells us to stay in line. But the fire within you never truly dies. It just waits for a spark. And that spark comes the moment you decide to stop playing small and start living fully. So take this moment, claim it. This is where the old you ends and the new you begins. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now. The decision doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be real. You've carried greatness inside you all along. You just needed to remember it. And once you do, there's no going back. The moment you decide to change, life will test that decision. Not because the universe is against you, but because it wants to know if you're serious. Every obstacle, every delay, every doubt, it's not there to stop you, it's there to shape you. Pressure doesn't break you, it reveals what's inside you. And if you can stand in the middle of that pressure without running back to your comfort zone, you'll discover strength you never knew you had. That's the turning point. That's where the person you were begins to dissolve, and the person you're meant to become starts to rise. Growth isn't supposed to feel comfortable. It's supposed to stretch you, to challenge the parts of you that have gone soft from safety. The pain you feel when you push beyond your limits isn't punishment, it's transformation. Think about it. A muscle grows by tearing. The old fibers must break for the new ones to form stronger. Your mind works the same way. Every time you face fear and move anyway, you're tearing through old beliefs. You're building new strength in the places where you once felt weak. That's how warriors are made. Not through ease, but through endurance. But most people quit right before the breakthrough. They misinterpret resistance as a sign they're on the wrong path, when, in reality, it's proof they're getting close. The mind loves comfort, and it will use every trick to keep you there. It'll whisper, "You're not ready." It'll remind you of every failure, every flaw, every reason to stop. That voice isn't truth, it's protection. Your brain is wired to avoid pain, but the life you want exists on the other side of it. So don't silence that voice, challenge it. When it says you can't, prove it wrong with action. When it says you're not enough, show it what happens when you refuse to give up. This is where mental resilience is born. True confidence doesn't come from always winning. It comes from knowing that even if you fall, you'll rise again. It comes from trusting your capacity to endure, to adapt, to grow. Every time you push through what scared you yesterday, you're rewriting your identity today. You're teaching your mind a new truth. I am capable, I am powerful, I am unstoppable. And that belief begins to change everything. You start to notice how different you feel. The things that once intimidated you no longer hold the same power. The people who doubted you fade into the background. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on discipline. You stop seeking approval and start seeking progress. You realize that excellence isn't about talent. It's about persistence. It's about showing up when you don't feel like it, about doing what needs to be done, even when no one is watching. That's the real test of greatness. So don't run from the hard days. They're sculpting you. They're burning away the weakness, the fear, the hesitation. Every challenge you face is carving character into your soul. You're not being punished. You're being prepared. The universe doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you're ready to handle. And right now, whether you see it or not, you are being shaped into someone unstoppable. Keep going, keep fighting, keep believing, because every step you take through resistance brings you closer to your potential. And when you look back, you'll realize the struggle was never meant to destroy you. It was designed to reveal you. There comes a point when you realize that no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the life you dream of. No one is going to wake you up, remind you of your worth, or fight your battles for you. That responsibility is yours. And that's not a curse. It's freedom. Because the moment you understand that your future depends on your decisions, you stop waiting and start creating. You stop hoping for change and start becoming the change. That's the moment you reclaim your power. Power isn't loud. It's not about control or dominance. Real power is quiet certainty. It's the unshakable belief that no matter what happens, you will find a way through it. It's built through discipline, through sacrifice, through the daily act of showing up when it would be easier to stay comfortable. Every time you choose to rise instead of retreat, you strengthen that inner power. You become someone the old you would barely recognize. And that's exactly the point. But here's what most people miss. Transformation doesn't happen in the spotlight. It happens in the shadows, in silence, when no one sees you working. It happens in the moments when you could quit but don't, when you could make excuses but take responsibility instead. That's where confidence is forged. Confidence doesn't come from pretending to be strong. It comes from proving to yourself that you are. Every difficult choice, every act of discipline, every time you keep your word to yourself, you build self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of everything. When you trust yourself, you stop seeking permission. You stop needing validation. You stop chasing other people's timelines. You start living on your own terms. You begin to move differently, calmer, clearer, more focused. You no longer need to convince anyone of your potential because you're living it. That's what separates those who rise from those who remain stuck. Most people know what they want. Few are willing to do what it takes to become who they need to be to get it. You will have days when you question everything, days when your effort feels invisible, when the progress seems too slow, when the dream feels too far away. Those are the days that define you, because anyone can keep going when it's easy, but it takes something deeper to keep going when it's hard. That's where your true identity is built, not in success, but in persistence. Every time you push forward in darkness, you're creating light for your future self. Remember this, progress isn't always visible, but it's always happening. Every choice you make today is shaping the person you'll be tomorrow. You may not see it yet, but your effort is compounding. The small victories, the consistent steps, the quiet persistence, they're all adding up. You're building a foundation that can't be shaken, a character that can't be broken. That's how legacies are made. Not through luck, but through relentless commitment to becoming more. You weren't born to be average, because average gives up when it gets hard. Average waits for motivation, but greatness acts without it. Average follows the crowd, but greatness creates its own path. You are not here to repeat the same day for the rest of your life. You are here to evolve, to expand, to rise. The fire within you isn't asking for permission, it's asking for action. So stop waiting for the perfect time. There is no perfect time. There is only this moment, and what you choose to do with it will define everything that comes next. Most people never realize how much of their life is ruled by fear disguised as logic. They call it being realistic, being practical, being safe. But deep down, they're not being logical. They're being scared. Scared to fail, scared to stand out, scared to want something more. Fear convinces them that dreaming big is dangerous, that staying small is wise, that settling is smart. And that's how potential dies, not in a storm of defeat, but in the quiet comfort of average. You weren't born with that fear. You learned it. You absorbed it from the people around you who stopped believing in themselves. You inherited their doubts, their limits, their excuses, until one day you started repeating them as your own. But here's the truth. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal. It's the mind's way of saying you're stepping into the unknown. And the unknown is exactly where growth happens. If you only move when you feel ready, you'll never move at all. Readiness doesn't come before action. It's created by it. Every person who's ever done something great felt fear. The difference is they didn't let it dictate their direction. They used it as fuel. Fear sharpens you. It forces you to focus. It wakes up the parts of you that have been sleeping. When you stop running from fear and start running toward purpose, everything changes. The fear doesn't go away, but it loses its power. You begin to see it for what it is. A test, not a threat. A challenge, not a curse. The mind loves certainty, but certainty is the enemy of progress. Growth requires risk. It demands you step into places where you can't control the outcome. And that's terrifying, yes, but it's also freeing. Because when you accept that failure is part of the journey, you stop being afraid of it. You stop living in the shadow of what if and start living in the light of why not. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's the path to it. Every setback carries a lesson. Every mistake builds resilience. Every rejection sharpens focus. So stop trying to avoid fear. Learn to walk with it. When you take action despite fear, you reclaim power. You remind yourself that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision that something else matters more. Courage doesn't shout, it whispers, keep going. It's the quiet force that moves you forward when no one believes, when nothing's guaranteed, when the odds are stacked against you. That's where character is born. You can't fake courage, you build it through repetition, by facing discomfort again and again until it becomes your new normal. One day, what once terrified you will feel ordinary. The challenges that used to break you will start to build you. The storms that once made you doubt will become proof of your strength. That's how transformation feels, not sudden, but steady. One brave act at a time. So if fear is standing in front of you right now, good. That means you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The people who never feel fear are the ones who never try. But you are trying. You're growing. You're changing. Let that fear remind you that you're alive, that you're moving, that you're doing something that matters. Don't wait for the fear to leave. Walk with it. Because on the other side of fear, there's freedom. And that's where your greatness begins. The moment you stop running from fear and start facing it, you begin to see who you really are. Not the version shaped by opinions, not the one molded by circumstance, but the raw, unfiltered you. The one that's always been there beneath the noise. That version doesn't chase approval. It doesn't beg for permission. It doesn't wait to feel ready. It simply acts because it knows that purpose doesn't wait for perfect timing. The real you has been whispering all along. You're stronger than you think. You're capable of more than you believe. The only question is, when will you finally listen? Every time you take a step toward that voice, you peel away another layer of limitation. You start to notice how much of your life was lived reacting instead of creating. How often you let fear, doubt, or the opinions of others steer you off your own path. But when you stop letting external noise control your internal truth, you reclaim your direction. That's what freedom really is. Not the absence of struggle, but the presence of self-control. The power to choose your own path, no matter how uncertain it feels. Psychologists call it self-actualization, the drive to become the fullest version of yourself. It's not about ego. It's not about chasing success to impress others. It's about alignment. It's about living in such a way that your actions, your values, and your dreams finally point in the same direction. When you reach that state, you stop needing external validation because you're fueled by something deeper, authentic purpose. That's when you stop existing and start living. But self-actualization demands honesty. You can't evolve while lying to yourself. You can't grow while clinging to stories that keep you small. You have to confront your excuses, your patterns, your comfort. You have to face the truth that sometimes it wasn't life holding you back. It was your own hesitation. That realization can sting, but it's also the most liberating thing you'll ever feel. Because once you own your part in your pain, you also own the power to change it. Responsibility is not a burden, it's a key. It unlocks the door to your next level. And when you start walking through that door, something shifts. The need to prove yourself fades. The desire to compare disappears. You no longer measure your worth by what others have done because you finally understand. You're not in competition with them. You're in competition with who you were yesterday. The only race worth running is the one toward your potential. Every day you choose growth over comfort, you win that race. Every time you silence the doubt and take one more step, you separate yourself from average. The world doesn't remember the ones who played it safe. It remembers the ones who refuse to accept limits. The ones who are willing to fail publicly, to struggle privately, to rise repeatedly. You have that same fire within you. It may have dimmed under years of fear and conformity, but it never went out. It's still there, waiting for you to feed it again, with belief, with action, with courage. So listen to that voice within. The one that whispers when everything else is loud. The one that says, you were not born to blend in, because deep down, you already know the truth. You were built for something greater, and the moment you stop pretending otherwise, the world starts to shift in your favor. Everything you need is already within you. You just have to stop doubting it long enough to let it rise. There is a moment when everything becomes clear, not because life suddenly gets easier, but because you finally stop running from your truth. You realize that every distraction, every excuse, every delay was just a way to avoid facing the power you already hold. The potential inside you has always been there, waiting for your permission to be unleashed. And when you stop fighting your own greatness, when you stop second-guessing your own worth, something incredible happens. You begin to rise, not because the world changed, but because you did. The world reflects who you believe you are. If you see yourself as powerless, everything around you will reinforce that story. But the moment you start to see yourself as capable, deserving, unstoppable, life starts to rearrange itself to match that energy. That's not luck. That's alignment. Your outer world always follows your inner world. So if you want to change your life, stop trying to control everything outside of you. Start mastering what's within you. Your thoughts, your focus, your habits. These are the levers that move mountains. The human mind is a creator. Every belief you hold becomes a command you give to your subconscious. It doesn't argue. It doesn't question. It simply acts. When you tell yourself, I can't, your mind finds proof. When you say, I will, it starts searching for possibilities. That's why awareness is power. You can't control every thought, but you can choose which ones to nurture. Feed your mind limitation, and you'll live in chains. Feed it purpose, and you'll walk in freedom. But freedom doesn't come without cost. It requires responsibility. It means taking ownership of your choices, your mindset, your direction. It's easier to blame circumstance, to point at luck, to say the system is unfair, and sometimes it is, but no amount of blame will build the life you want. You can't control where you started, but you can control where you go next. That's the power of being human. Every day you wake up, you're handed a new chance to rewrite the script. Every sunrise is a reset. The only question is what you'll do with it. You were not born average. You were born aware. You were born with imagination, the ability to create something that's never existed before. That's what separates you from everything else in nature. The power to envision a better future and the courage to pursue it is the essence of greatness. Don't waste it chasing comfort. Don't waste it trying to fit in. The people who change the world are never the ones who follow the crowd. They're the ones who dare to believe they can make a difference, even when no one else sees it yet. Average minds will call it arrogance. They'll call it unrealistic. But what they don't understand is that confidence isn't arrogance, it's evidence. It's the result of knowing who you are and what you're capable of. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your ambition. You don't need to apologize for wanting more. Wanting more doesn't make you ungrateful. It makes you alive. It means the fire inside you still burns, that your spirit hasn't given up. And that fire is sacred. Protect it, fuel it, and let it guide you. The moment you realize that your mind creates your reality, you stop waiting for chances. You start building them. You stop chasing approval. You start chasing purpose. You stop living small. You start living true. And that's the point where average no longer fits, because you were never meant to blend in with mediocrity. You were meant to stand tall in your authenticity and become everything you were destined to be. Once you understand the power you hold, the next battle begins. The battle of consistency. Because knowing you can change means nothing if you don't follow through. Dreams without discipline fade into fantasy. Purpose without persistence dissolves into frustration. You can have the vision, the belief, even the talent, but if you don't commit to daily action, you'll remain stuck in the same place, wishing instead of building. Consistency is the bridge between potential and power. It's the difference between those who talk about greatness and those who live it. You can't wait to feel motivated every day. You won't. Some mornings you'll wake up tired, discouraged, questioning whether it's worth it, and those are the days that matter most. Because showing up when it's easy doesn't build strength. Showing up when it's hard does. Every time you act despite resistance, you reinforce your identity as someone who follows through. You build integrity with yourself. And that's the foundation of true confidence. Not words, not hype, but proof. Proof that you can rely on yourself when it counts. The mind loves comfort, and comfort will whisper in your ear every single day. It will say, "You've done enough." It will say, "Take it easy." It will say, "You deserve a break." And sometimes you do, but not every time. Because comfort has a sneaky way of turning into complacency. The moment you stop challenging yourself, you stop growing. And the moment you stop growing, you start dying slowly, even while you're still alive. The ones who rise are not the ones who have it easy. They're the ones who keep pushing when comfort begs them to stop. It's easy to admire the finished product, the athlete who dominates, the creator who inspires, the leader who transforms lives. But what we don't see is the years of unseen effort. The quiet mornings, the lonely nights, the sacrifices no one clapped for, the battles fought in silence. That's where greatness is built. In the space between discipline and doubt, you have that same capacity within you. The question isn't whether you can, it's whether you will, again and again and again, until the dream takes shape. Psychologically, consistency rewires your identity. Each repeated action strengthens the neural pathways in your brain that define who you are. If you act with courage daily, you become courageous. If you choose persistence daily, you become resilient. Identity isn't found, it's formed one choice at a time. That's why small actions matter. Every time you do what you said you would, even in the smallest way, you cast a vote for the person you want to become. Enough of those votes and transformation becomes inevitable. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to keep showing up. Miss a day, start again. Fall short, stand back up. Failure doesn't erase your progress, it refines it. The path to greatness isn't straight. It's filled with curves, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But each moment you refuse to quit, you grow stronger. Every time you push forward despite imperfection, you become more unstoppable. The only true failure is choosing to stop trying. You weren't born to be average because average gives up when it gets inconvenient. Average starts strong, but fades fast. You are not average. You are the exception, the one who keeps showing up when everyone else slows down. You are the one who turns discipline into freedom, struggle into strength, and consistency into character. Because greatness isn't built in a day, it's built daily. And the moment you embrace that truth, the extraordinary becomes inevitable. There will come a time when your progress feels invisible, when you're putting in the work, but nothing seems to move. When the results you've been chasing seem stuck just out of reach. And in those moments, most people quit, not because they can't keep going, but because they can't see the reward yet. The truth is, growth is rarely visible in real time. It happens beneath the surface, quietly, steadily, unseen. Just because you can't see change doesn't mean it isn't happening. The seeds you've planted are taking root. The foundation you're building is forming strength where no one can see it yet. That's the part of the journey that separates dreamers from doers. The dreamers crave constant proof. They need instant validation. But the doers understand that transformation takes time. They trust the process even when progress is invisible. They know that consistency over time compounds into momentum, and momentum turns into mastery. Most people underestimate how long it takes to see results and overestimate how much they can handle at once. But the ones who keep moving, even when no one's watching, end up standing where others gave up. Psychologically, this is where the mind plays its hardest tricks. It whispers that nothing's changing, that the effort isn't working, that you're wasting your time. But that's just resistance trying to protect your old identity. Your brain is wired to keep you safe, not successful. It craves familiarity, not evolution. When you push past that, when you keep showing up through the doubt, you're literally rewiring yourself for greatness. The discomfort you feel isn't failure. It's evidence that you're evolving. Every great transformation begins as frustration. Every breakthrough hides behind boredom, repetition, and doubt. The best in any field, the athletes, the artists, the leaders, they all face the same wall you're facing now. But they learn something most people never do. The wall isn't there to stop you. It's there to test your hunger. How badly do you want it? Bad enough to keep going when there's no applause, no progress, no promise of reward, because that's where champions are made. The truth is, success isn't built in the moments of excitement. It's built in the moments of silence. When you're tired, when you're uncertain, when no one is cheering for you but you keep moving anyway. Those are the defining moments. That's where grit is born. Every time you push forward without visible results, you build faith. Faith in yourself. Faith in the process. Faith that your effort means something, even if the outcome hasn't revealed itself yet. Faith is the secret ingredient that average people never develop. They believe when it's easy. They trust when it's obvious. But you? If you're willing to believe before it's visible, to keep moving before it's certain, you separate yourself from the crowd. You become unstoppable. Because while others wait to see results before committing, you commit first and let the results follow. That's power, that's leadership, that's transformation. You weren't born to be average because average gives up too soon. Average wants results without resilience, rewards without responsibility. But not you. You were born to endure, to believe when it's hard, to keep your vision alive when the world can't see it yet. You were built to walk through the unseen, to trust that every step is shaping your future self. So hold the line, stay patient, keep going. The work you're doing in the dark will one day light the world. Every single time you rise when life tries to pull you down, something inside you changes. It's not just your mindset, it's your identity. Each moment you refuse to quit, you reinforce a new belief that you are capable of more than you once imagined. Most people think transformation begins with motivation, but it begins with defiance. The quiet decision to look at difficulty and say, "You won't break me." That's the birthplace of strength. That's where the ordinary ends and the extraordinary begins. The world tells you to take it easy, to slow down, to not expect too much. It whispers that comfort is happiness, that safety is peace. But deep down, you know that's a lie. Comfort never made anyone come alive. It never gave birth to greatness. It numbs the spirit, dulls ambition, and traps people in invisible cages they call normal life. If you feel restless, if you feel the tension between who you are and who you could become, that's not frustration. It's your potential demanding attention. It's life trying to remind you that you're not supposed to shrink to fit the limits others created. When you stop settling, you begin expanding. And expansion always feels like pain before it feels like freedom. That's because growth stretches the mind, challenges old beliefs, and dismantles the excuses you've used to stay safe. It's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be worth it. Pain doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It means you're alive in pursuit of something real. Every tear, every doubt, every failure is evidence that you're pushing against the edge of who you were, carving space for who you're becoming. Psychologists call this the identity gap, the space between your current self and your ideal self. Most people feel it and turn away, retreating to comfort. But those who face it, who choose to bridge that gap with effort, discipline, and belief, create transformation. The discomfort isn't punishment, it's guidance. It's showing you exactly where you need to grow. That's the raw truth most people avoid. You can't become your best self by clinging to who you are now. You have to shed, to release, to let the old version of you die so the new one can live. The greatest mistake you can make is confusing temporary struggle with permanent failure. Struggle doesn't mean stop, it means evolve. Life isn't testing your ability. It's testing your belief. Can you keep walking when you can't see the path? Can you trust your purpose when nothing seems to go right? That's where the difference is made. That's where courage is proven. Every time you choose to move forward through uncertainty, you are training your soul to rise above fear. And once you learn that nothing external controls your internal fire, you become unstoppable. You realize the world can doubt you, ignore you, underestimate you, but it can't define you because you've already chosen who you are. You've already decided that average isn't your destiny. You were not born to live unnoticed. You were born to stand for something, to live a life that makes others believe more is possible. So let this be your turning point. Stop apologizing for wanting more. Stop explaining your hunger to people who settled for less. You don't need their permission to rise. The moment you commit fully to your growth, your potential, your purpose, the universe rearranges itself to meet your courage. Keep going. Every ounce of resistance you face now is shaping the version of you that will make the impossible look effortless. This is who you are meant to be, and the world is waiting to see you become it.